Hello and welcome back to another 3DS tutorial. Today I'm going to be talking about splining, or more specifically, bringing a 2D image and converting it into a 3D image. So, just got our normal scene as per usual here. I'm just going to recenter this. Alright, perfect. So, now, for this one you could just use any image. Here I've got a image selected that I had designed earlier this year. So, first things first, like I just said, you'll want to pick an image. So any image will work for you. Anyways, once you pick your image, you'll want to check the size of it in terms of the dimensions. Here it's 1920 by 1080. So what I'm going to do is go back into 3DS and create a box. As per usual, sizing doesn't matter. So, to try and make this nice and accurate, I'm going to just create the box with the dimensions of what the image is. Now we've got that, I'll just set the height to 10. I'm going to open up the material editor here. And for your sake, I guess I'll use the compact editor. So now you've got your material selected. Let's just apply it to the image. You should know how to do that by now. In case you don't, you just click on the material you're using, drag it back over, or you click on the object, click on the material, and apply it to selection. There. So now I'm going to go down to Maps, choose diffuse color where it says None, and select Bitmap from the dialog that pops up. Here we're going to be given a nice little prompt as per usual. Gonna go to the image location. If I can remember where I put it. Yeah. Wait a second. Alright, there we go. So, gonna locate the image and open it up. Alright, if it doesn't appear, look for the thing that says Show Shaded Material on Viewport. And that's a little wonky, so let's just change this to 1080 by 1920. And there we go, we got a perfectly proportioned image. Now, again, you could do this with any image, so let's say I were to want to redraw this in 3DS. Again, you just go down to the properties and find the dimensions and yada yada yada. Now, if you're using an image that was perfectly square, you could simply just make the length and width any size you want and let the image fit automatically. But if it's one where it's not properly proportioned, then yeah, just make a nice large object and draw it. Anyways. So now we've got our thing set up. So what I'm going to do now, instead of staying in the viewport, I'm going to go down to the top-down viewport, or go up to the top-down viewport, maximize it with Alt-W as per usual, and switch the view mode to default shading. Let's turn that grid off by pressing G. Perfect. Now we have a perfectly good top-down view of the image. What I'm going to do now is go up to the Creation tab, go down to Standard Primitives. Actually, instead of this, instead of being in Geometry tab, I'm going to go to the Shapes tab and select Line. This is basically your pen tool from Photoshop, so hopefully you don't have any bad memories with it. So this more or less works like the pen tool, except what you want to do first is just draw a rough sketch of the image and then go back later on and tweak it. So what I'm going to do here is just going to recreate the outline of, well, the very visible part of the image, as you can see. So let's just go in and decide where to start. I personally try to pick an area where I feel like it'd be a good place to end as well, as in it's not too hard to start, but it's not too hard to finish. Here, let's say right here looks good. So I'm going to click to create the first. Right, what I should do first actually. Go back. I'm gonna go back down to here. W is go to the move tool and just drag this down a little bit. Doesn't matter how far, because when you're in the top-down viewport, it doesn't matter because to you it looks the same. Now I can create a line. Let's make the color. There's not much green. Actually, now I'll just keep it this. And whatever, red's gonna work. So now I'll create the first vertex point, which you can see here. I'm just clicking and dragging. So you can see it's just creating one smooth line. Now, when I release the mouse, you're gonna notice that it's gonna start bending. That is basically when you, I guess, start dragging one of the endpoints with the pen tool. So again, at first you're going to want to create a rough sketch of the image. So what I'm going to do here is just follow along, click, drag. Now if you click and drag after you already have a vertex point down, it's going to act like a the pen tool basically. In 3ds it's called a Bezier. So I'll probably be referring to it as that. But you don't always have to click and drag whenever you create a point. It just allows you to create another curve for the next time. So here I'll just create another curve to try and mesh it with there, and then I'll create one there with a very slight drag on it. Now, when you're getting to larger curves like this, you might want to create a point there and there rather than just going the distance, but ultimately it's up to you and how far the distance is, but I like to try and bridge the gap. Just, you know, keep a nice fluent motion. Always have 2 points on a curve. And the corners as well, and just basically follow along. Now if you're, I'll go through this again with a image that has straight edges to show you another way of doing it, but this one I guess you could say is the more complicated way of doing it first. So you just gonna keep following the outline as best I can. Doesn't matter, this is still the rough draft. I want to try and alright, so up here I'm not sticking with the glow, so I'm not going to stick with the glow, no problem, I don't have to undo anything. Another thing I should say, this is like creating any normal standard primitive in 3ds. Once you start creating it, you can't stop until it's either created or unless you delete it. Simple enough. Just pretty much means you either gotta start over if you get an undesired effect, or you're going to just have to deal with it and fix it afterwards. I like to fix it afterwards unless it's something that I really didn't want to happen, in which case, yeah, I'll undo it all. So, you just gotta make sure to keep it nice and lined up so it's not too much of a hassle to go back through later on. Another nice thing about this is it's pretty much drawing with it's pretty much drawing in Illustrator, so just creating a vector graphic, honestly. Just doing it in a 3D environment allows you with a little more freedom, I guess you could say. Just really nice program, really nice way of doing everything. I guess I'll create that point beyond the bend so I can curve it into it. Come up here. Probably should have created a point in there little ways, and I could fix that later on if I want to. A little bright in the middle there, so it's a little hard to follow. I guess I probably could have chosen a better image, but I wanted something that would be a little more complex to better demonstrate how to do this, I guess. But yeah, so now I'm going to click on the final point, drag a bit, And if you click close enough to the final point, it'll give you this prompt if you want to close the spline. Since I am done drawing it, I'm going to click yes. And now it's basically if you drew with one of these, or if you just had the outline of a standard primitive. So now I'm going to go to the Modify tab, and here's where we don't really have to be in that viewport anymore, but since I still want to get it perfectly aligned, I'm going to stay up here. So I'm going to select the vertex point. You can do that by pressing 1 if you want the shortcut. So now it's pretty much just a the editable poly editor, except it's already there for you because you never had to draw or the object individually, I guess, whatever. So now I'm just going to go around the object, make sure everything's nice and aligned and morphed, which here you can see it's not very well done. So here you can really see where the pen tool sort of takes its form. You click on one of the vertex points and you got two, whatever those things are called again, I forget, but whatever. So if you click and drag, they operate together. Gonna undo that. But if you want to undo that or fix that so they don't operate together, right click and you'll see that it's currently a Bezier. I'm going to switch it to Bezier Corner. Now they'll operate individually. Though on the corners here, if you give me a moment. So yeah, to do this, you just click on the point or the handle and you drag. Let's draw these ones to be a little bigger. I'll shimmy that down a bit. Just, keep it a little smoother. I personally prefer to try and convert everything to a Bezier corner because I feel like it gives you a whole lot more flexibility in terms of what you can and cannot do. Now, for demonstration purposes, say I wanted this to just be a straight edge rather than a, sort of like down here where I had it morph with it. I'm going to right click, and instead of having to go into Bezier Corner, I'm just going to select Corner. And basically what it does, it just creates a sharp corner. This is what would happen if you were to just, when you created a point, let's say, you click, you drag, you let go, and you are waiting to place down your next point. If you just click without dragging it, it would automatically create one of these points for you. But since I don't want that, I'm going to keep it on Bezier Corner and morph it back to shape. And you'll also notice what I did when I did it there. It put the handles back to where they should probably be when you did it yourself. So here's when the glow started to detach, or I started to go with the glow, so I'm just going to move the anchor point or the vertex point back down in line with the mesh. I'm not liking the way I did that, so I'm going to convert it back to a Bezier corner. Going to try and keep it in line here as usual. Now, one thing you should keep in mind whenever you're working with these, as long as this line is in or touching the edge of the object you're tracing, the same thing goes with the pen tool in Photoshop. You're pretty much guaranteed a straight curve as long as you keep the lines placed perfectly. Play around with it a bit, you'll get it to work eventually. It's not rocket science, you could figure it out. Unless what I said there just confused you, in which case just ignore it, because I don't want to confuse you guys more than I already do. But yeah, just casually going around the object, working on everything, fixing the imperfections. I could keep the glow a bit here, I guess. Though what I like to do is, whenever I'm tracing an object, I'll often like to adjust it in ways so it sort of becomes unique in itself, rather than it just being a replica of what it originally was. Just make slight alterations to change the way it is, and basically make it a little more unique. I don't know, that's just something I do. No, I'm not really doing it here because I want to show how to do this rather than confuse you guys and get you guys wrapped up in my own world of creativity, but whatever. I don't mind. Don't know what I did there. Now, sometimes it can get a little finicky with making selections like that, but if that happens, just zoom in and it'll eventually cancel itself out, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. That's weird how it's snapping like that. Yeah, I don't know why it's snapping like that. Then again, I don't really care. It's staying pretty well aligned. Let's draw this around a bit. Let's make this a little less clunky looking. And remember, in 3DS, you don't have to, when you right click, you can do it anywhere on the screen and it's always going to prompt this dialogue. So don't feel like you have to right click on the object itself because that's not going to change anything. I mean, it might obstruct your view, that's about it, but you know, it's your choice if you want to obstruct your view or not. Okay, this is, you know what, here I'll do a demonstration. So here we can see that it's curving inwards like this, and then swooping back out and going back in. Because there's only 2 anchor points, I can't necessarily have this a smooth continuous flow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the select tool by pressing the Q button or going up here. And I'm going to control click on the second anchor point. From here, I'm going to go into, oh boy, where is it on this version? On your version, it'll be higher up, but what you're looking for is connect. So I'm just going to click connect. That's supposed to do something. Why does it connect? Oh boy. Now here we are just, you can see that there's some confusion with different programs. Or versions, whatever. Basically a different version of program, whatever. Hold on, I just want to try and figure this out. Yeah, whatever. Don't think I really care too much. I'll try to do it later or whatever. But what you should be able to do is select 2 points, and then when you select connect, it'll create another anchor point in the middle, so you could yeah, I'll have to look into it some other time. Whatever. Not an issue. I'll probably get back to that. So you're just gonna continue morphing my way around. Man, I love bad jokes. And here we're back at the start. So now we've got a much more refined outline of the object. So now I'm done in the top-down viewport, and I'm gonna go back down to my perspective viewport. Look at that. Since I don't like to remove stuff until I'm absolutely done with it, I'll just drag that off to the side, and I'm gonna select the spline once again, go to the modify list, and then select extrude, and voila, we've got a 3D object of what I just drew. So yeah, that's basically that's just a very basic understanding of how you can use the spline tool or the line tool creating splines to recreate a 2D or an object in an image into a 3D environment to be able to manipulate it yourself. Though, if I am correct, just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to convert this into an editable poly now, so that's just been flattened. I'm going to select the vertex points and... Alright, one thing I should say, when you're using the splines, it's automatically creating all these points for you, so you don't have to go back into it later on and have to add all these to avoid it looking blocky. So that's a nice thing. So I'm just going to select a couple of these here and just bend them that way a bit more, I guess. I'll select these, pull them out here, pull these out here, pull these out here. Let's move these out a little more. Yeah, a little more. That's looking a little better, I guess. But what I was trying to show earlier, so let's select two groups of those vertex points. And where is it now? Connect. Let's not do that actually. But I don't know, let's say that you were looking at this and let's say down here looked a little too let's say down here looked a little too blocky, so to say. Which we can see it sort of is because there's that long line here where there's nothing. I'm going to go to the edge tool by pressing two for the shortcut. I'm struggling tonight. So I'm going to select the two of those, and I'm going the upper and lower ones, no other ones. To note, I'm going to go to connect, and now there's going to be a line in the middle of them. But let's say you wanted to do a little more of a corner. I'm just going to select this little box beside here, settings. It'll prompt this dialog, and I'll create two of them, and these settings are for a little minute editing, I guess you could say. And just like that, we have two more edges, vertical edges, and four more vertex points because of it. Very helpful for refining your creations, I should say. I found myself doing this a whole lot recently, and with the recent creation of pretty much a face model, it's very, very helpful. So just play around with this stuff for a bit, and you'll eventually get the hang of it. This, as you saw there, this was not hard to make at all, so if it looks this accurate, I say anybody could really do something like this. You just gotta have an idea of what you're doing, I guess. Not really even. It's more, I don't know, if you have patience, you can do it. Here, let me just backtrack a bit here. No. God, I have this stuff labeled, but yet I still struggle. Isn't that ironic? So, I'm going to take my logo. Let's see the size here. 599 by 599, so it's a perfect square. What I'll do for this demonstration, because of that, let's just pull this off to the side as well. I'll create another box. This one, just if you understood everything I said there, congratulations, you're done. You can go on with whatever assignment you're working on. But if you want to see another way to work with this, stay around, I guess. Or if you just don't want to do your work because you know you're a high school student who doesn't like to do their work, then continue watching. Anyway, so I'll just create another box. Size doesn't matter as per usual. I'll create, let's say 200 by 200. I'll have a height of 10 as per usual. So let's go back into the material editor. I'll select a new material, apply it to here, make sure it's going to be visible on the viewport, go down to maps, diffuse color, none, bitmap, okay. Gonna navigate to the image. There we go. Gonna open it. There we go. It's applied, and it's a 1:1 scale. Even though it looks a little squished. Whatever. This one, I guess, is less for the Bezier points and more for the sharp corners. Hydration's your friend. Always drink. Anyways, that was a bad message. So I'm just going to lower this again. And going to switch back up to the top-down viewport. Now, the reason why you use the top-down viewport, since I don't feel like I've actually explained this yet, is because when you're using the top-down viewport or the front, left, bottom, just anything that's not orthographic or maybe orthographic, just not perspective, just any of these ones, it's as though you're looking on a piece of paper. What you're looking at is pretty much where it relates to in the world, whereas if you're in perspective, as you can see here, I could go to top down, but as I'm moving, it just doesn't look at the same as it does up here. Hard to describe if you don't know what I mean. Whatever. So, gonna go back to the splines, create a line. Let's just choose this corner. I'm gonna hold down shift so it just creates a straight line, and I'm going to click there, keep holding shift, click, gotta let go of shift to do the edge, click, click, click. I'm going to try and make sure that's aligned, click, and done and done. It's a little crooked, but whatever, I'm not going for accuracy. Now, even though I just did the top part, I'm going to open this up. So let's select this vertex point. You can see that these were all made using just corners, simple enough. But if you want, you could still go in and create Bezier corners if you want to do crazy, wacky stuff. That's up to you, but just pretty much treat it as the pen tool of 3DS. I just switched this to orthographic view, whatever. Just do T for top-down view. And that's it. Basic spline, line, recreation, tutorial, whatever you want to call it. I honestly don't care at this point. Just hopefully you learned something from this and you can take from it in the future. I'll see you in the next video, assuming I make one.